Alright, this is going to be our very last video that we do, and I want to do this video a little bit differently than the rest. I want you guys to work through the rest of the practice problems on here. There's one about a child, all the way through one about a dog, I believe. I want you to work those practice problems before you watch this video, and then watch this video for the answers to them. This is going to be the end of the material that you're going to be responsible for, but I do want you to keep going through, finish filling out those notes, see if you can come up with any questions for me to go over when we get back. But this is going to be the end of the material that you're responsible for when you're doing your quiz. So only videos 1 through 4. All right. So, having dimples is dominance over the absence of dimples. Crossing a heterozygous dimpled man with a woman who does not have dimples. Showing all of our work in our Punnett squares and showing your findings in the table. Remember, you should not have, or you should have already worked this problem once. So, our genotype for our man, heterozygous dimpled. Genotype for the woman, homozygous recessive. So heterozygous dimpled man with a woman who does not have dimples. Remember, the only way that you will show that recessive phenotype is if you are a recessive yourself. So we're going to put that heterozygous up on top and the homozygous dominant along the side there. And we're going to fill them in just like this. Here we can see that we have 2 out of our 4, or 1/2, are heterozygous, and 1/2 are that homozygous recessive. What that means is that anything that has this capital letter, anything that has the dominant, is going to show dimples, which are our dominant, and anything that does not have the dominant allele in there at all is going to show no dimples, or our recessive. All right. Our next question is going to be talking about albinism, or the lack of pigmentation. Normal skin is dominant over albino skin. A woman who has normal skin, but whose father was albino, marries a heterozygous normal-skinned man. What type of offspring might they expect? Now, this one's going to be a little bit more difficult, but just take a minute, think through it. I'm sure you can get there. Alright, if you've already finished this, go ahead, continue the video with me. So the genotype of the woman. She has normal skin, so we know she has to have at least one dominant allele, but remember, her other allele came from her father. The only thing he could have given her was recessive, so she is heterozygous. And the man is normal skinned, and it says he's heterozygous, so we know that that's heterozygous. And so then we put them along the sides, and we fill them in, and we can see that our genotype, we have 1 homozygous dominant, 1 homozygous recessive, and 2 heterozygous. Anything that has that dominant allele is going to show that dominant phenotype, which means that we have 3/4 normal and 1/4 albino. So how many different genotypes are possible among the offspring? 3. You can be homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, or heterozygous. However, when it comes to the phenotypes, which you actually look like, there are only 2. The probability of getting homozygous offspring, 1/2, because you can get homozygous dominant or homozygous recessive, and the probability of getting heterozygous is also 1/2. The probability of getting normal, 3/4, and the probability of getting albino, just 1/4. Alright, I believe this is our last practice problem here. In dogs, the allele for short hair is dominant over the allele for long hair. Two short-haired dogs have a litter of puppies. Some of the puppies have short hair and some of the puppies have long hair. So what are the genotypes of the parents? This one's a little bit different because we're working it backwards. So my suggestion, make some in the middle and work your way out. Go ahead, take just 1 minute and work on this problem. All right, so we know that this has to be the case because heterozygous is the only way that you're going to get anything that has that recessive long hair. And these are our possible genotypes and phenotypes. We're going to work through this problem in a little bit more detail a little bit later on. So if we have 12 puppies, how many would you expect to have short hair? Well, 3/4 of 12 is 9. So 9 of the puppies should have long hair. Which means that the remaining 3 would have long hair. Principle of independent assortment, not really going to focus on this one. In fact, I'm pretty much going to skip it entirely for the academic kids. My honors kids, we'll talk about this some next week when I get back. Mendel needed to just answer one more question. When alleles are being segregated during gamete formation, does the segregation of one pair have any effect on the segregation of the other alleles? In short, no. If you are tall, it will not determine whether your seed color is going to be green or yellow. They sort independently of each other, so we are not going to be doing dihybrid crosses. Don't worry about dihybrid crosses, guys. We're going to talk about these. Just know that Mendel's principle of assortment essentially said that, let me skip to our summary slide. They are going to segregate independently. So if you're tall, the only thing that's going to determine if you're tall are those tall alleles. If you have green seeds, the only thing they're going to determine is those green seeds. So as a quick review before I finish up and allow you guys to just kind of keep going through, work some more of those practice problems, go through, finish the rest of these notes. Number 1, the pattern of inheritance is determined by individual units known as genes. Genes are passed from parent to offspring. Each gene has 2 or more forms called alleles. Some of these alleles are dominant while others are recessive. Each parent has 2 alleles for a particular trait that they inherited from their parents. They will pass 1 allele to their offspring when the alleles are segregated into gametes, and the alleles for one trait segregate independently of the alleles for another trait. And that's going to wrap it up for our video segments. Go ahead, finish filling out the rest of this stuff. See if you can come up with some questions for me. I hope that you guys got something out of this. Feel free to go back through and listen to this as many times as you would like to. I am going to see you on Friday. I can't wait. Bye, guys.